welcome back to another episode of OHKO, a Pokemon VGC podcast. It is regional season, and they're coming out fast. Louisville just around the corner, and we're going to chat all about that, do our OHKO predictions, and just get caught up with the format. My name's Sierra Dawn, joined here not only by my co-host, Joe Brown, but with special guest James Evans. You've been here before.
I have been.
Yeah, so we're not going to make this all about you, but we did want a top player perspective on a couple of things. So thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing, especially leading up to Louisville?
Well, first off, thank you again for having me, Joe and Sierra. It's always nice to be back here. Words cannot describe how unprepared I am for this. It's looking like a what I usually like to call on Twitter like an 0-3 or win the whole tournament kind of feeling, but it's really like more like 0-3 or 0-3 right now. I'm crammed between school and not playing the game. And now I have to play the game, so we're gonna see how that works out. But I'm still excited nonetheless.
I hyped you up too much by being like, we brought top player James Evans on here. You're just like, I'm about to go 0-3, guys.
Can we get a new guest in here?
Yeah, is it too late to message someone else?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, let's get the professional opinion, and then James is like, what's Hisui and Typhlosion do? Like, he's just all
Have you guys heard about Sneasler?
Why, what's Blaze? What is this ability? It just does nothing.
Actually true.
No, you're in a tough spot, but honestly, like, of all the players, like, I definitely think you were in that camp of 0-3 or win the event. It seems like that's up your alley.
I would say I definitely like that. I think that is my style. I like playing that way because one day I'll just wake up and be like, oh, I won this now. Cool.
I do remember quite a few events last year where I roll up and we're like, hey James, how you feeling? You're like, I don't know, man. I just brought Garchomp. I don't know what I'm doing. And then you're like day 2, I'm like making these runs, and it's like, oh, okay, man.
That was the UIC in a nutshell.
Yeah.
I then woke up and I was like, I want to play Mega Man Battle Network because the Legacy Collection just dropped, and that was all I wanted to play. And then I woke up and went 8-1. I was just like, of all the days. And then I made cut. I was like, of all the days, man, I just want to play the game.
It'd be like that. You just have to play a different game instead, VGC. And Joe Brown, you're also headed to Louisville. How are you feeling for the weekend?
Yeah, I'm very excited getting to cast my first regional of the season. Got a great crew. You know, should be a fun time. My first ever time in Louisville, ever in Kentucky, I should say. So hopefully, you know, go get some drinks with it, for like whiskey or bourbon, or, you know, what, I don't know.
The bourbon they're known for.
Yeah, there you go. So get some drinks with some friends, having fun. My first time in Kentucky. I know some of our OHKO listeners are going to be there, so hopefully I'm able to meet up with them, take some photos and whatnot. But it's gonna be a spooky time because this is the Halloween, quote unquote Halloween regional. So, you know, hopefully people bring some outfits. Maybe if Jesse Romolo is going to play, maybe he shows up in an outfit, you know, like his chef outfit and whatever. But yeah, I'm also bringing my TCG deck, Sierra, and I'm going to try to play in some TCG side events, and at least on the Friday. I don't know about on Saturday or Sunday, but it should be a fun time.
Be fun. I am staying home, so a yippee. Might co-stream, might not. I was debating, like Ugarte was like, you know, if you're trying to get to a regional to compete, this is going to be one of the cheaper ones. Because he's driving down with a Canadian. Well, he's driving down with one of the Canadians. Because he's out here visiting me right now. And then he's like, between that and I already got a place to stay, it's going to be pretty cheap. But no, there's just too much going on right now. So it's okay. It's okay. I just miss out on the Halloween shenanigans. I got to be involved with the Halloween shenanigans last year, so I guess it's fine. I am kind of curious, though, before we dive into everything else. Like, I get that this is the closest event to Halloween, so if you want to do a Halloween regional, this one has to be it. But in my mind, it's still too early for Halloween, so we're going to see all this stuff, like, everyone, like, dressed up, or, like, the broadcast being all spooky, and it's like when you see those Christmas decorations at Walmart in October,
November.
And it's like...
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation, right? Because the next option is either LAIC or Sacramento, which are well past Halloween. So this is really the only situation. I can't remember when we were in Toronto last year for Halloween, right?
Yeah.
Or no,
it was literally
you
the
were in
same
Cineral,
weekend.
right?
Weekend of,
Yeah,
and right, it was the weekend of Halloween, so it made way more sense. But I don't know. I think it could be fun. Hopefully the set's going to be all decked out in Halloween things, and hopefully have some Halloween stuff prepared on the broadcast. But I guess like the way that Christmas has kind of just taken over like everything, like the day after Thanksgiving to Christmas. I think Halloween is just the whole month of October, right? 25 movies in 25 days, and you know, or like the horror genres, or what was it on ABC Family? I was growing up, it was like 31 horror movies in 31 days in October. I don't know if anyone else remembers that.
That or like, yeah, no, I think you're correct. I think it's that, and like Freeform does that a lot now.
Yeah,
like, whatever,
so
like some
like,
TV channels.
I think just the 10th month of the year, like we just call the whole month Halloween at this point, you know.
I maybe it's just because I'm not like the biggest Halloween person. I think in what they called it in Superstore was like, instead of like Scrooge, it's a bouge. Like you're just like, I don't know, you're sonobic about it, which is like, maybe that's me. It's fun like the couple days of, but I'm definitely not. I don't like spooky movies. I don't like gore. I don't like any of that stuff. So maybe I'm just a buzzkill.
I mean, it's an excuse to watch Nightmare Before Christmas. So
I've never seen it.
Okay, hold on. Let's have this conversation. Hold on a second. First of all,
this is a great start.
James, ignore Sierra. She hasn't seen any movies. She doesn't like movies. She's not allowed to be a part of this conversation.
How?
It's a long story. It's a long story that Sierra does not like movies. We've gotten into some heated discussions over this. Okay.
I'm not even gonna ask anything.
Okay, so since we've already derailed the conversation, let's continue going down the derailed road here. Nightmare Before Christmas, while Halloween themed aesthetically and visually,
a Christmas movie.
It is a Christmas movie that teaches Christmas values and things revolving around Christmas. It's not a Halloween movie.
It isn't, but you can't stop me from watching it. It's an excuse.
It's your life.
Not,
you could watch it in February if you want to. I'm not telling you when to watch it.
They kidnapped the Easter Bunny in it. I'm gonna watch it on Easter too. Like it's valid.
It is a good movie. I will say it's not my favorite Tim Burton, or I know he produced it, but like the Tim Burton-esque style claymation movies. I like some of the other ones more, but it's a good one. Sierra, you should probably watch it at some point in your life. It's literally, I think, an hour and 30. 11 minutes long. Like it's not even an hour and a half.
It's not long. It's not long at all.
That's so much time.
Sierra's eyes.
So much time.
When I said an hour and 11, like it was the most exhausting thing. When she watches 7 hour
Instagram reels,
she watches 7 hour YouTube video essays, but she can't watch a 71-minute movie.
I haven't been on the video essays. Instead, it's been like the long play Minecraft videos, like the 4.5 hour one of the Apocalypse mod.
Oh my god, Sierra!
She's too busy watching Minecraft. Can't watch Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, maybe before Christmas. Maybe before Christmas, because that's when like it's more of the movie atmosphere. Like I watched Die Hard for the first time like a year ago.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
I'm gonna let it slide because I want her to watch movies. So we'll let it slide.
Encourage it. You just have to encourage
Yes, exactly. In any form. Yeah.
I can't like sit here. I'm just like just bottle it up. Just put it somewhere else for now.
Anyways, at the end of it, this is a Pokemon VGC podcast, not a movie podcast. Thank goodness for me, because I would not contribute very much to this. I have seen a good chunk of Pokemon movies. I will say that.
We should review all the Pokemon movies.
I haven't seen like a lot of the modern. I think I've seen like Pokemon Forever and Pokemon Heroes. And, like,
you need to see the very first Pokemon movies.
The first
amazing.
One
okay.
Yeah.
Have you seen the extended version of it?
No.
There's like a 15 minutes before the movie starts that actually got cut for like the VHS like NA release, and it's actually of Amber, like her dad. It shows like the mom and the scientist is like divorce over Amber, and then it shows Amber in like this, I don't know, like this half alive, half not state with these other, because he's trying to clone his daughter because she died. With these other cloned Pokemon, including Mewtwo. Because they're cloning Mew.
I can see why.
I know what you're talking about now. It's got like the baby Mewtwo.
Yeah, and then
like, I've seen clips of it.
Yeah, then they all die except for the Mewtwo, and then the Mewtwo's so enraged that they like suppress all the memories. That's why at like the very beginning of the movie, he's like cannot remember anything, and like it's like some of the commentary beforehand is like referencing, and like some of it throughout the movie references like 12 minutes. So that's pretty cool.
I think this is one of our top tier intros of any episode we've ever done, to be honest.
Talking about movies.
Do you remember the clones that died in the
Yeah.
Pokemon movie? Okay.
Yeah, isn't that awesome, guys?
All right, well, if you haven't seen that, you can try and search it up. It's kind of hard to find, but you can find it on YouTube somewhere. Or just watch the entire movie on your way to Louisville if your journey is long enough that you need more than just this podcast to take up your time. But Louisville, same old regulation. We've been kind of chugging along this for a little bit now. Last week, me and Joe Brown talked a lot about how we felt about the regulation, but obviously we don't compete on the same level as the players. So, James, I wanted to know how you kind of feel about the format going into this weekend and just kind of like how you felt like this format's come along.
I would say we discussed it a little before we started recording, but I don't know how to describe it, but it definitely feels like this format is in some form of limbo. It's like the worst part of Regulation F decided to start it was like, I'm gonna be my own format for 4 months, and we're kind of just playing that. I don't really know how to describe it other than there are a lot of Pokemon running around right now that I feel like just don't make the game particularly fun or engaging to play. And it's a little weird because I definitely started this format thinking, oh, I really want to be good at this one because it feels very honest compared to Regulation G, where you had a lot of high power, high speed Pokemon that oftentimes checked each other in ways that you couldn't really control. Like, specifically, like Miraidon was a really good example where Miraidon beats itself no matter what you run on it, and you can't really control. Like, I would say, most of it is left up to kind of pure chance where sometimes your opponent has the faster Whimsicott, sometimes you have the slower Iron Hand, sometimes you have more attacks, sometimes they're slightly bulkier, sometimes you're faster. It's just way too many variables to consider. And Miraidon was like still pretty good, but there are also things like Kyrex Ice Rider where it can just live a hit and suddenly you lose the game entirely, and that's not so much out of your control as like, but it just feels very ridiculous to a point where it's like, okay, you hit this thing with like a base 180 trillion power move and it's gonna live on 2 HP, and suddenly you get punished for playing the game. It kind of feels like the complete opposite, where there are a lot of very brutally honest Pokemon surrounded by very stupid and dumb mechanics like Dire Claw.
Everyone's favorite.
I really hate this move because it's stuck on a Pokemon that is fundamentally really well designed, and then it just has one move that completely ruins the game, in my opinion. And it's not very fun. I've played it locals with Sneasler now, where I'll be in a losing position and I click Dire Claw because it's the super effective button, and then they Terra out of Dire Claw super effectiveness, and then I get sleep, and I'm just sitting there like, all right, man, like, I can't really tell you good game, but game, I guess. It was one of them.
That was a game.
Yeah. It definitely, I was going to say, it kind of feels, again, very similar to Reg F, like I mentioned, where a lot of the worst traits of that format are kind of starting to pop up, where we see a lot of people not really, I guess, grasping what to do. We're at a point in the format where there are a lot of very powerful Pokemon, again, where people are just kind of running around with a lot of dishonest gimmicks, I guess is a way to phrase it. I wouldn't even really call it that, but it's like things like Electroshot spam. You have things like coaching spam, things like just click the button with Golden Go. Like a lot of very, I guess, rigid comps. Like even like P2 balance with Ursaluna. We kind of see very similar builds with like Flamigo or Tyranitar. Like not a lot of people are branching out of those like built archetypes. And I think we really saw that happen at Dortmund, where Baltimore was kind of like everyone was getting their footing. A lot of experimentation for the most part. And then when we got to Dortmund, it was really, really bad. Like the team that the Tangs ran at Baltimore kind of exploded in popularity. I know Michael Kelsch ran it, and then he uploaded his paste online, and that spread like wildfire. So now you have a lot of people running what I would argue is, like, again, to compare to Reg F, this is the Japan balance of this format, where it is...
Break down the team as well for those who might not be familiar with the team.
So, for those who don't know what Japan Balance is, it was this team in Reg F that was annoying, and it didn't win anything, and it wasn't really good in my opinion, but that's not what I'm here to tell you about. It was Rillaboom, Incineroar, Chien Pao, Landorus, Raging Bolt, and it was Urshifu. Did I say Urshifu?
Yeah, he didn't say. That's the 6, yeah.
Okay, that's the 6.
Landorus
Sometimes
Incarnate also.
Yeah,
not
Incarnate.
Therian.
And sometimes you have a Flutter Mane, sometimes you would have something else, but for the most part, it was those 6 Pokemon. It kind of revolved around just being really, really annoying with Raging Bolt, because Raging Bolt was that format's dishonest Pokemon. It was really annoying. It doesn't die. It pretty much punishes everything that it can possibly ever want to punish. And it kind of just gets away with it no matter what. Now that Pokemon is Sneasler. But again, it kind of surrounds itself with a lot of honest Pokemon. You have a Rillaboom, you have a Primarina. Dragapult's pretty similar to just Xianpao or Landorus on that, where it's just a very strong breaker. Again, a lot of the pieces kind of just fall into place similarly. Where like a lot of people are seeing this team, they're seeing that it has good results. People are using it because it is the most popular team in the format, and no one really knows how to beat it properly. But at the same time, everything beats it. So we're kind of stuck in this weird limbo where everyone basically is running a team that loses to the exact same thing it's trying to beat. It's really weird, and it kind of creates this really bad vacuum. It's a reason why I didn't like Reg F for a while, before fortunate events happened that I won't get into as well. But it really kind of just does suck out the fun of building, I think. Where a lot of times I'll start building now and it's like, okay, Rillaboom Sneasler or Sneasler Dragapult or some form of Sneasler balance, because you're gonna have 1 to 2 of those Pokemon at the end of the day, and those are pretty much gonna shift how you're playing the format anyways, because you're gonna be like, oh, well, it loses to this, so you add Dragapult, or you lose to this, so you add King Gambit. And now you have this steel type instead of this steel type. And if you had Golden Go, you would run Garchomp instead of Dragapult. And it's like you would end up with the same team in some way, shape, or form. You would have a Dragon, you would have Steel, you would have a Sneasler, and you would have your fake out guy, and then etc. etc. It's really, really unfun. I really don't like when formats kind of get to this point. And it's not really anything to blame the players for doing, because at the end of the day, everyone wants to win. So you're going to run what gives you the best odds of winning. But it definitely feels like a lot of the creativity has been sucked out of the format. And it kind of happens in these more modern day formats where there's so many good players going around and so much information being shared that a lot of the process of figuring out what is good and what is not gets expedited to an insane degree. Like when I was 15 and we were all playing 2018, no one knew like what Pokemon were good for a fair amount of time. Like you would just have to assume that over the course of some trial and error over a couple months that something would be good if you practiced it long enough, and that does happen from time to time still. But it definitely feels like, people are playing the game more frequently, they're trading information more frequently, there are bigger building groups now, there's just more to go around. So it's very much, we approach the threshold of what I would consider to be like a metagame before it kind of completely collapses on itself. Because no one knows what to do about it. We're all just kind of stuck in the same spot where it's like, oh, well, I want to run this, but it loses to this. But if I run that, then it's going to lose to the same thing that I'm trying to run. But like, what do I do? Because
it gets to be like a frustrating little like loop there that it's
very. I don't like it. It's really sad because I do think Reg H has a lot of really cool things about it. Like I ran Chandelure at the first regional and I had a great time running it. It had a lot of unique strengths, and I ran like a Basculegion with it. Basculegion was really cool, but that Pokemon was also really broken. But things like Archaeudon, things like Sneasler, they kind of, I think, just dumb down the format in ways that I don't particularly find fun or rewarding. Archaeudon's a bit of a finicky case because it's a Pokemon that we saw. It was popular in Reg F for a while. It's obviously very good here. It won the first regional of the season. And even then, I just don't like the way it's always going to kind of be built one of 2 ways. And both of those ways are going to be you either run Power or Meteor, or not Meteor P, oh my god, Electro Shot, and you just kind of play very aggressively, or you play this AV, I'm going to click the Electro Shot button 80 trillion times in rain, and you're just going to have to deal with it, and I'm going to get my boosts. I would say it's just not fun Pokemon that I would argue are very common right now. But that's just me. So.
It's definitely, looking at the competitive end of how this format is definitely why I didn't necessarily feel like going and competing at Louisville. I think I've had a lot more fun with the more creative teams. Like, I was streaming the other day, and I played a Yanma team. There's a couple people from the OHKO Discord that I saw in chat. It was a Yanma, out of all things. So originally, Fevzy had tweeted about it. It was like, yo, this thing's fast, compound eyes, you get hypnosis, there's Screech. And I told Agarte, and I was like, can you please build me this team? And he's like, it's a joke. And I'm like, fine. And then Wiltank made a team and posted it was like, enjoy content creators. I was like, oh, I will take that for myself. Absolutely don't mind if I do. And played it on stream. Man, every single game, I just led Yanma Garchomp. And
Oh my
90% of the time, I just press Terra Ground Earthquake with Life Orb Chomp next to this Yanma, and just, it's so fast. I just hypnosis whatever was the biggest threat.
It's 90, it's
Yeah.
95 base speed, right? Like it is fairly fast. It outruns like a majority of the format.
Yeah, it was so fast, and it's faster than my Garchomp. So like, I'm worried about my Garchomp at all. I'm just like, sleep, awesome. Next turn, sleep. The other thing, I don't think I can one shot something with my Garchomp. Screech, like it
Oh my
was,
God,
it was
he
so
gets
much
that.
fun. So like, I think that's part of the format. I enjoy being able to play like these silly, goofy teams, considering that it is at a power level, which I can do that. I see a Sneasler, whoop, hypnosis. Sorry, not sorry. You know, you like to do statuses, I can do that too.
Yeah.
But that was definitely something that was a little bit more fun in my opinion. I don't know, Joe Brown. I know you're kind of on like the um not always like the most competitive teams, stuff that you enjoy, but they're still like semi-competitive. So then how are you finding like playing on that aspect? Because I know you just finished a VGC stream.
Yeah, well, my first question to you is, did you ever figure out or remember to put Garchomp in the first slot instead of the second slot so you can actually
I
see the
did.
screen?
When I swapped from the Vivian Earthworm team to the based Giga Chad Yanma team, I always put Garchomp on the left.
Okay, because for those who weren't watching her stream, when she started, she was leading Vivian Garchomp every game and just going Terra Ground, and the hat on Garchomp was blocking the entire screen the whole time. So she eventually, like 4 games in a row, was like, "Oh, I forgot to make Garchomp, Pokemon 1." But she finally got there. I think, to me, Sierra, this format is, I'm not fully there yet, but I'm starting to resent Terastallizing from this format.
Oh my God, yes.
I hope James and I are on the same team here. The way you mentioned, the way your team is built to beat this Pokemon like Sneasler or whatever, and then they just Terra out of the Dire Claw weakness, or however James said it earlier. I've had that same issue with Archaludon. If there's only a finite amount of answers to Archaludon, and he's able to Terra out of some of those answers. There's only a certain amount. Like, I was playing Armors and DD, right? I was trying to have fun. And clearly, Sneasler should have an awful time into Armors and DD 4 times weak to Psychic, and I have 2 Psychic types on the field, and then he just goes Terra Dark, and it's like, well, now I can't do anything to this Pokemon that if it was any of the other 25 years of the history of Pokemon, I would be able to destroy. But in this 3-year particular time, this Pokemon is able to go unpunished, and I think Terastallizing has, well, I don't want to complain about it, and I've definitely talked with players about it. I think Terastallizing has, for lack of a better word, I don't want to say like lessened team building, but it has allowed people to get away with team problems where they would not be able to in prior formats. I don't know if James agrees with me there or not, but like, you are allowed to have clear-cut weaknesses on your team because you can get out of that weakness at any point.
I do agree, like, for the most part. I think I would say the comparison I always go to is, like, you're always going to run into some guy in, like, 1400 Showdown that has 3 Terra Ghosts or more because he just forgot how to play the game versus Fake Out.
Correct.
That's, like, the egregious example. I think, I see, this is, like, the point. We're year 3 in Scarlet and Violet, and I've started to feel this more frequently now. I definitely started feeling the burnout around Reg G, because playing Terra Fairy Miraidon Mirrors was something for the soul. I feel like a part of me died in that format, but what's left can give you a firm opinion on Terastallization now, where it's like optimal Terastallization. And I say this is a realization I've come to very recently, is that Terastallization is a good mechanic on paper, and I really do think it is cool. In low power formats, it's a little worse off, and it's the same thing in high power formats. It's pretty worse off. It has to find a very good balance where a lot of the Pokemon aren't necessarily going to gain a ton from Terastallization, whether it's offensive or defensive. They need to just have like a good medium. I think Reg C accomplished that. I think Reg F accomplished that pretty well. Because I felt like for the most part, Terastallization in those formats was a way to not only, I would say, help your Pokemon play defensively, but offensively at the same time, but also you weren't necessarily dodging whatever you're being hit by. Like a good example is like Landorus always ran like Terra Poison or Terra Steel, and against Chien-Pao, like you take that Icicle Crash a lot better, but you're still taking like 70 from Icicle Crash if you Terra to Poison. It's not like a very fair trade-off. You're just doing it to survive. In this format and in like high power formats again, I think Terastallization in its optimal state, when both players are playing optimally and they're both in the zone, Terastallization just becomes a very glorified 50-50.
Yes.
At the end of the day, you are clicking a super effective button into a Pokemon that is weak against whatever type you're throwing out, and they're going to oftentimes play a type that is either... Like a good example is Sneasler versus Archaeodon, because this is a pretty fair interaction where Sneasler has Dire Claw in close combat. Archaeodon usually runs Terra Grass, so it's a 50-50 literally on whether they Terra to Grass and you Dire Claw them on the call, or you just go straight for close combat. Naturally, you would just go straight for close combat, because that is what is sensible most of the time. But if you get that call right, you're in a way better position. It's not so much like an exact 50-50, but the point still kind of stands where Terastallization is oftentimes more rewarding if you just have a type that lets you dodge and cause mind games. Because then if you don't Terastallize, then you make your opponent look like an idiot. I would say like Goldengo's another really good example of it. Garchomp again, like coming up. Dragonite's another good one too, where like a lot of these Pokemon rely on Terastallization to kind of push the game forward right now. Especially Dragonite. Oh my god, Dragonite. It's like really bad right now. The Dragonite is super popular.
I had Dragonite on one of my teams and it hit like a wet noodle. Like it was so bad.
It literally needs Terrifying to do anything, and people are running multi-scale, so you get intimidated, you get faked out. Like you need it to survive literally anything without Terastallization. And even then, 90% of the time they Terastallize turn 1 because they will die to Ice Beam if they look at Porygon too funny. But I think a lot of it is just that Terastallization kind of feels very redundant right now. I don't really enjoy clicking any Terastallizations with my Pokemon because it only feels like they're just kind of doing it to change a dynamic slightly. And a lot of it kind of just feels like mind games. I think a reason why we saw Terastallization pop up more frequently in Regulation G and here, where you see it on Pokemon like Urshifu and Sneasler, is not so much that it's like, it's become a lot better. It's, obviously it has been, but it's like more so, I think, it's that it's not worth trying to play defensively on these aggressive Pokemon. Like you're going to see a Pokemon that are aggressive, like run offensive Terastallization. But I think it's gotten way worse, especially again in high power and low power creep formats where you see Dragapult running it, you see Miraidon running it, or Shifu running it, not Miraidon, but like Sneasler running it. Like all these stellar Terra Pokemon, Archaeodon runs it if it's like sturdy power, or like Goldengo runs Steel. Like Dragonite runs Flying, things like that, where it's like we need to do as much damage as possible and cut as many resistances off, but like also Stellar at the same time is like there's not enough defensively going around, and it's not rewarding enough to play defensively and get that trade-off. Just go completely offensive, get the extra damage off, and be rewarded for it, I guess, because there's not really much like defensive play, and I think a lot of the good and interesting dynamics from Terastallization come from relatively frail or Pokemon that normally wouldn't have a defensive role with their Terastallization, using it for something that it is not usually known for. Like again, Terra Poison on Landorus has a lot of good applications. Like obviously you live Icicle Crash from PAL, but you also get the Sludge Bomb boost, so it works out pretty well evenly both ways. Stellar kind of just feels like a very dumbed down version of that, where it's like, okay, you get no defensive benefit from it, but you're just gonna hit like a truck for 2.5 turns.
And you're all holding Focus Sash anyway. Like
yeah, so it's like yeah, like I was saying, then you have Pokemon like Dragapult that really like to test the limits of what you can play the game with. Like Dragon Darts is a pretty strong move, but it hits like 2 targets unless it's smart target something. But then you have something like Outrage, which is like, why would you ever lock into this move ever unless it's like 1v1 and you're fighting like, I don't know, Porygon.
I don't know.
There's no fairies.
Dragapult, Terra Dragon, Choice Band, Outrage is kind of like
there's no fairies in the format. That's why.
Like, there's no fairies. But I think it's just like, I don't know how to describe it. Terastallization kind of just feels like it's burned out for me. I would say I probably went against a lot of like what I phrased in that sentence. Like eventually later, like probably people are going to be very confused at how I described this, but I think that just goes to show how much of a mess Terastallization is right now, where I feel like I can hate it for every single reason that I enjoyed it at one point or another.
I so desperately want post Worlds until, you know, if we stay on a 3-year cycle, right? Like, till we're getting the more information. I so desperately want post Worlds to be no restricted, no Terra, and just Pokemon are actually Pokemon again.
I think that would be interesting.
I'm not saying it's not going to have problems. Every format has problems.
Oh no, it would absolutely have problems. But yeah. I think it would just be interesting to see, because I do think hoping, like, moving forward in Generation 10, we're never going to get another generation without like a mechanic in the battle that's unique or something probably, but I really do hope moving forward. Mega Evolution was kind of the closest we got to, I feel like, a mechanic that naturally expanded on the mechanics of the game that were already implemented. Like, it's not a particularly game-breaking mechanic, but it's just a natural extension of building. And Terastallization is a natural extension. All the gimmicks are not gimmicks, but like all the mechanics are natural extensions of building, but it didn't feel nearly as, I guess, natural or organic as Mega Evolution did, where it's like, I'm going to rightfully slot in this Pokemon because it has a clear, decided purpose. And I would say before and after Mega Evolution, in some cases, like Gardevoir, Metagross, Salamence, Gyarados, like things like that, where they had good abilities in their base forms, good abilities in their Mega forms. There's even Gengar as well, but like, there are reasons to run these guys, Rayquaza also, but it kind of just feels like with Terastallization, I've gotten to the point where I'm not necessarily building around Terastallization anymore. I feel like a lot of people just kind of slap the Pokemon on the team and they're like, all right, Dragapult, you see, you're just Terra Dragon now every single time. Have fun, man. Like, like I would say, it's like Terra Fire Rillaboom on every team, Terra Steel Golden Go, Terra Fire Annihilate, like Terra Grass Archaeudon. It's not interesting anymore. Terastallization doesn't have that unique oomph that it had at the beginning, where people were very experimental with it, and people still are experimental with it. But I wouldn't say nearly as to an effective degree.
Ugarte was telling me about how he just got wrecked by Terra fighting Terra Blast Golden Go.
Ooh.
Like,
I'm talking to Joe. I'm talking to Joe after this.
I don't know if I was supposed to say that, but like, yeah, he was recording a video. I don't think it's seen the light of day, but wakes me up at like 3 a.m. You won't believe what I lost to. I definitely didn't think this was going to be like, when we were talking about issues with format, getting into kind of like the Terastallization, like, do we think that Terastallization for a bit has kind of been on the downtrend to becoming a problem? Or like, Joe Brown, do you think it's just like more so with this format, or where is this Terra hate coming from?
I've kind of been, I feel like I've been consistently neutral on Terra throughout the years. I haven't been as, outwardly loving of it as some of the other, commentators are. Like, I still think it is fun and it's interesting. It is inherently dynamic, which as a commentator, that makes it exciting to watch a match because of how a best of 3 can change over the dynamic decisions the players make. But me personally, I've been neutral on it and frustrated with it, particularly from a team building perspective. Like, as I mentioned, I don't think Sneasler is at 40% if Terastallization does not exist. I don't think we're at 90% from the big 3 steals if Terastallization doesn't exist, right? So, and that's not a bad thing. It's just, this is a result of the format. So I think, to me, Terastallization in general, I'm not negative on it, but I do think that it has hindered team building flexibility for, like, where James out here, saying like, oh, people just, take the top team and run with it, which has always happened in VGC. There's always been a successful team, and then people have just taken that, copy paste, and perform well with it. But now it almost seems like there's less reason to innovate than prior formats, because, well, if you find an answer to a particular Pokemon or a particular archetype, well, they can just Terra out of that answer. And then that Pokemon that you have on the team that's supposed to answer this specific Pokemon is no longer a counter to it.
Yeah, it definitely does feel like I would say, I think it has to do with a lot of things, but I definitely agree with that kind of stance where it's like people, I would say, it doesn't feel like, I would say, because people do innovate. There are plenty of people that innovate. Like, I know the Tangs are always cooking up interesting stuff. Like, there are always people willing to build and innovate, but it definitely feels like we've hit a like again, like a limit on where the meta goes, because now we're all trying to beat the same thing with the same thing, and it's not working. So now people have to look outside the box, like completely. There's no, oh well, this guy. No, like you have to make something completely new, and it's gonna be bad at first, and you're gonna have to play it and learn how to build it. It kind of feels like the building process doesn't happen nearly as seamlessly anymore, where now a lot of it is, again, where people see the team that does the best, they take it, they tweak one or two things according to their play style, and they kind of just run with it. And that's not necessarily enough to change a team, in my opinion. I think to really kind of get into becoming a good builder and becoming a even better player than what has already been established, a lot of players really do need to dig deep and understand like from the core, when you're building a team, is understand like what do you want out of it. And if you're gonna run these standard Pokemon, you need to understand why you're running them. I would say everyone knows why they run Incineroar. It's because it's got Intimidate, it's got all these good stats, it's got Fake Out, it's great utility.
It's Wolfie VGC runs it.
Yeah, like I mean I see the video every day and I'm just like, well, I guess I have to run it now. There's no other option. But it always kind of feels like when I want to build, I always have to figure out why and how I'm gonna have this Pokemon operate and why I want to have it operate. That's why I like looking into kind of these more unique Pokemon, especially in low power formats. Like again, I ran Chandelure at Baltimore, and it was a really, really fun time. Because it ended up catching a lot of holes on my team that I didn't really like consider at first, and it was really fun. But now I'm at a point where a lot of unique builds, like a lot of Pokemon I'm trying to figure out that are unique or interesting, they kind of struggle because again, you can't prep for the inconsistencies that Pokemon like Sneasler give you, that like Terastallization give you. It's always going to be an uphill battle, and obviously that's always going to be the case for non-meta relevant Pokemon. But it definitely. Go on.
No, sorry. There was a weird like my thing stuttered, so I thought you stopped talking. So go ahead. Go ahead. My bad.
I definitely think it's a little tougher right now because again, there's just so little variance. I feel like I would say like the three big teams right now are all comprised of relatively like the same 12 to like 14 Pokemon, and you can kind of just fight anything. It's not particularly fun. I'm kind of tired of seeing Electabuzz on my screen because this guy just like sits here and does nothing, and then I'm like, all right, what did we do? But people won't stop running it because, it does somewhat well. And, like, that's not a knock to the players that make it do good, obviously. Like, again, you play what you want.
You gotta do.
Yeah, exactly. But it definitely feels like, it kind of just feels like hearsay, where I can see this Pokemon, I can see its functions. I don't understand why people are flocking in droves to use Electabuzz, though. It's clearly good, but it's not like I'm dropping everything and I'm gonna play Electabuzz for the rest of my life. This is the part where like I rip off my shirt Superman style and you just see like #1 Electabuzz fan on it. Like I'm not running to Louisville to do that. It's like,
I mean, before we move on to the subject of Terastallization, I feel like because for playing, I'm like bored with it. I mean, like I said, when I was playing this Yamagarchomp team, I'm just clicking Terra Ground turn 1 every single game. But that and watching over the streams and kind of reflecting back on my own like casts and stuff as well, I'm bored because it seems like Terastallizing is so boring now. It reminds me of Players Cup 4, where it was the double, like you had to bracket reset. Yeah, you had to bracket reset, and it was just Dynamax, Landorus every single game because it was optimal. Yeah. But then I was like, well, now it's gonna be and like I had the finals of that. Like it was me and Dawes, and we had that, and it was just like, and now we're gonna see Landorus again, and it was a mirror. So now we're gonna see the other person also Dynamax Landorus again because it's optimal. And looking back at a couple of the stream matches, like, and I do it too. We hype up Terastallization. Oh, we're seeing this Terastallization. I've probably uttered those words like a couple of 100 times because in each set, if you have a 3-game set, well, each person you're probably going to Terastallize in a match, so you can have up to 6 Terastallizations over a weekend, over multiple events. How many times have we said, oh, now it's going to be Terastallization? Oh, we're going to Terastallization first turn. Oh, guess what the opponent did? Also Terastallize first turn. You know what?
You'll never believe.
The same damn Pokemon it was last time. Like, it's just so boring
It
now.
really
Like,
is.
sometimes there is, like, the 180, like, oh, what? We actually didn't see this coming. But,
Like Terra Bug Iron Treads at
yeah,
Worlds.
or, like, something. But, like, at the same time, it's just, like, I don't know. A lot of the times, it's not fun anymore. It's just, I don't know. It seems kind
Yeah.
of boring, and then we have to get excited about it. And, like, sometimes it is actually exciting, but a lot of the times, it's just, like, it's the same as clicking fake out now. It's the same as a parting shot, bring back in, intimidate. It's just, like, the standard part of the match, and it's kinda lost its
I agree.
Terra sparkle.
It's
Ooh,
that's a good one.
that was a good pun. That was good.
I agree. It definitely has gotten stale, and it's like one of those things where it's like, again, every gimmick has that. Like, I bet money that you've probably also said, like, here's
I mean,
the Dynamax.
Dynamax, like,
Yeah, here's the
literally, like,
Dynamax.
format.
But I think
At least
when
we
it
had
comes,
spectator mode though for Dynamax, so it looked cool.
Oh, it did
Fair.
not feel any cooler when I had to say, guess what's Dynamaxing yet again? It's the Landorus, because if they Dynamax anything other than the Landorus, max the airspeed, they're gonna lose. The one game where they did Galarian Moltres instead, guess what happened? They lost. It's just boring.
I definitely
Boring.
do agree, because, like, I think I think
Sierra's so pressed right now.
I can't blame her. Like, I also watched that finals. I can't imagine having to talk over it, where it was just like, all right, which Lando wins the speed tie and, like, knocks out the other, like, as a Lecky.
Yeah.
But I definitely do feel that with Dynamax, and I definitely feel that with Terastallization. It's weird because Megas are, again, similar issue. Same thing with Z-moves, where it's like every player has one, so you get to use it once. But I definitely think it's more, you know, Dynamax and Terastallization have the issue where every Pokemon on the team can use it. And to some degree, that's nice. It's useful. I think it allows for some level of variance. But at the end of the day, again, optimally, it's going to come down to you have a Pokemon that is going to abuse it in the matchup because it is optimal to do so. And also, it's not worth it on any other Pokemon because this one is built for the matchup to do this job. Megas are different fundamentally because you are willingly locking in one Pokemon that can do the job. It's the same thing with Z-moves. Z-moves are a little more aggressive, and, like, their function is purposefully, like, always going to be in some way, shape, or form to push the game in an aggressive board state. Megas are not exactly one-to-one. They're always going to have some level of, again, variance where it's like, Mega Sableye is not particularly an offensive Pokemon. It's more, but obviously you don't really see Mega Sableye in doubles. But it's like, fundamentally, Mega Pokemon can always be built differently. Terastallization has the option to be built defensively, but it's always going to be used to gain an offensive advantage. 90%. Not doing it strictly to wall. Again, Dynamax, same thing. It's got defensive potential built into the mechanic, but that's more or less by nature. The job, it's still going to push an offensive board 90% of the time because the only time you're not is by clicking Max Guard, which is to stop the other guy's offense from being pushed automatically. Megas are, again, very much just a natural extension of the game's mechanics because there's no change. It's just stats. It's extra stats, some abilities, some types change. But at the end of the day, it's all an even balance, it feels like. No Pokemon is overtly powerful because of Mega Evolution, besides, like, Mega Gengar, maybe. But it's, for the most part, it always feels like there's I would say, you're choosing to run Mega Gengar. You're choosing to run Mega Kangaskhan. You're choosing to run Mega Manectric, Mega Gardevoir, Mega Salamence. All these guys, you willingly choose to lock in before the tournament. There is a conscious decision that this is going to be your Mega Pokemon that you're running, for the most part. And sometimes you run two Mega Pokemon, because that's a conscious decision you make. It never feels that way with Terastallization nowadays, where it's like, everyone just runs the same Terras on the same Pokemon because they're optimal. And obviously, Megas are have the same builds because they are optimal. Like, Mega Kangaskhan always runs a certain amount of moves. Mega Gengar runs the certain same type of moves. But there's always variance. There's always variance on the teams it runs. It's always variance on the comps. It's never the same. Terastallization kind of feels like it's made the game similar in a way that wasn't particularly anticipated. Yes, this will change the game. And it definitely did for a while because people did not know how to optimally use it. There was experimentation. There was, new blood coming in and out where it was like people kind of saw it with new eyes, new perspectives. Now, again, where we have so much information, so many people are very good at the game, so much, I would say, building groups are conversing, talking with other people, trading notes. It's
It's more fun when people are not as good at the game, when everything's
Yeah.
not so optimal.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's not have Amoongus answers. Let's not even bring Amoongus. Let's just go back to, you know what? Terra fighting Golden Go Terra Blast. But
No, but like, you kid, but like, actually, for 15 years of VGC's history, it was you actually had to have an Amoongus answer on your team instead of just slapping Terra Grass onto your strongest Pokemon. Like, it is the game is functionally different now, and team building is functionally different than it's ever been before, just because of Terra. Like, you talk about Megas and Z moves, they were super strong. I'm not going to deny it. I'm the biggest Mega fan, Mega defender on this podcast, certainly. But like, it was, you opted into it. You had a held item. Heatran couldn't use Kangaskhanite. Cresselia couldn't use Salamensite, right? Like, there was a reason that Pokemon was so strong, because you particularly built your team around that Pokemon and restricted it with that held item. Z moves, Gigavolt Havoc on Tapu Koko was crazy strong because you committed to its held item was the reason that it was strong. Not just all 6 Pokemon can Dynamax and all 6 Pokemon can Terra. Like, could you imagine if Dynamax was a held item and then the team building that could have happened? Like, let's say, like, I remember with Groudon in the GS Cup, the World's Year, right? Like, a lot of people would just Dynamax Groudon and then Max Quake 3 times to make their team super bulky, have +3 special defense. Like, if you had to hold, the Dynamax held item, and it was only on Groudon, and your team was constructed around that strategy, it might have felt a little more fair than all 6 Pokemon can Dynamax at the same time. Like, things with it, I think Fluttermane very easily could have held a Terrastium Z, held item and just turned into a fairy type and click Dazzling Gleam every game. Like, if that was a held item, it wouldn't have been much of a restriction to Fluttermane or Raging Bolt or Shifu or some of the other really strong Pokemon if they actually had to hold an item. But no, you get choice specs, plus you get the special attack boost from the sun from Photosynthesis, plus you get the Terra Fairy double stab adaptability on top of it. Like, no, it's too flexible.
I think the issue is that it doesn't seem like it can be punished enough sometimes with Terastallization. Obviously, like, you can, like, NAIC, where Jody game 2 fakes out and Terastallized Flutter because it lost ghost typing and, like, made the call, right? You see Amoongus's, like, get scored because they've, like, lost their grass typing because they've Terastallized out, or, like, other things like that. Like, there is some punish, but when you're just going for, like, a super aggressive Pokemon and just having a Terra type that's just gonna let you do all this damage, or you survive the hit and then you just fire back, which should have been a losable situation, you just OHKO them return. It just kind of seems like, I don't know, there's not enough of a drawback sometimes to make it as interesting. And I think that was also an issue with, like, Dynamaxing. Oh no, you can't get flinch, you have double HP. Like, oh, what a terrible thing, right? At least with something like Z moves, what's exciting about that is you click that button and the other person protects or, like, swaps or something.
Or swaps a dark type into Psychium Z.
Yeah, there is actually a very real threat of this powerful thing you're doing getting countered in a very real way, which made it interesting. And there is some of that with Terastallization still, but I just don't think enough. I think it's just too strong overall. I think a really fun way to fix it, not a held item, but, like, when you're in team preview, game number 1, you have to lock what Pokemon can Terastallize in that match, and it's the only one that can lock throughout either at the best of 3 or just in that match. You look at the team preview and that's it. You gotta lock it from there.
That's an interesting. I would say that sounds cool. I would like to try that out, actually. But, like,
then you can't do it, like, any time. Like, you have to make that decision, and then it's not going to be like these weird 50-50s in battles. And then you can also, like, have made, like, the wrong decision. All of a sudden, you had your grass immunity that's now no longer a grass type. You just get bodied by Amoongus, and there's a really real drawback.
Yeah, I think no, that's an interesting one, because, like, I do agree, like, the held item stuff. I would say held items in general, I think, make the game better. I think giving Pokemon the ability to just, like, play a battle gimmick or a battle mechanic through other means is kind of just, like, not always fun, because, like, again, the drawback with Z moves and Megastones is that you have to commit to it. So obviously you have a lot of staticness, and, like, we obviously Coco's love running Gigavolt Havoc, Kangaskhan runs Kangaskhan, etc. But it's like the way you compensate for that, you lose your item, cannot run choice specs, you can't run assault vest, like things like that. There are ways to always kind of compensate for that. And I would say in certain ways Terastallization gives you that too, but also like there's no real way to compensate for the Sneasler that was going to run 252 attack, 252 speed anyways, regardless of whether it ran Ghost or Stellar like Terra. There's no difference fundamentally. It's just like, oh, well, now you have to guess whether or not it's going to be like immune to your fake out or not. Is it just going to stay a base form, or like it's just not. It's not nearly as engaging, I guess, in the way I desire like to play Pokemon. Obviously, I'm just one guy. Like I would say, at the end of the day, my opinions are a small like drip in a big pond. But it definitely kind of feels like, I would say, I've been playing the game for 8 years now. This is definitely the most burned out I've felt like from playing a mechanic. And obviously we didn't get all the years of Dynamax to play and had their
Thankfully.
yeah. people had their beef with that. And I do dislike Dynamax to a certain degree, but I'm not gonna also sit here and tell you that like I didn't enjoy some parts of it where I just got to click Max Quake with Groudon and Shadow Claw and funny stuff like that. Because there was, at the end of the day, still ways to innovate with that, no matter how stupid they were. And obviously there are ways to innovate with Terra. It's just a matter of it has to be the right format at the right time, and I don't feel like this is the right format for it at all. I think this is a very good example of how any gimmick can kind of, or I keep calling them gimmicks, but it's like how any battle mechanic can really just like be turned the wrong way from a format that it was clearly it was never meant to be a part of. This is just one of them.
I'm going to use that transition point. We're getting back to talking about
sorry
current
about
format.
that. I derailed that.
All of us chatting, right? We're talking about current format. I think at this point, just a little bit burned out of things, considering the format that's going on and a couple of the issue problems that have come up. But we still have to be playing in this format, and hopefully Louisville can be bringing out a bit of that innovation and something to kind of spice things up, so that next week we'd be like, yo, you know what? Just kidding. This is the best format ever. They banned Sneasler from the game. Like, oh my god, this is crazy. But,
oh my god, Yanma won Louisville.
Like, Yanma, the Yan man. Like, let's go. But yeah, let's talk about what we can expect for Louisville, because Baltimore and Dortmund, we got to see, a couple of interesting teams come out, because even though there is these problematic Pokemon and things that we're talking about, like, oh, we really don't like this, or oh, this is like too far, too much, we are still seeing quite a few interesting teams, quite a few interesting Pokemon be popping up. Do we think going into Louisville now that's going to be like a trend that we see kind of continued, that we can see these more unorthodox Pokemon kind of pop off, or do we think that this is going to start being that curve in the meta where we only get to like the usual typical stuff?
So I would say it's kind of a weird imbalance. Like I think like usually the Midwest regionals are where we start to see a little bit more of the wacky stuff pop out. Like the further west you get, usually the more unorthodox teams like start to show up. But we had like Bull Beach and Espathra at Baltimore, so it can really only get weirder from there. But it's kind of, it's a weird intersection of, there is a lot of standard right now. Like, again, Sneasler balance is everywhere. Coaching Sneasler is everywhere. I think we're going to see a lot of those just comps in general. But I wouldn't be shocked to also see like a fair bit of size spam in Doza. Basically like the normal stuff that you probably prepped for at Baltimore, but this time you'll actually see it. Like I think the big notable one that I think a lot of people, I would say, I've seen a fair amount of people pay attention to it, but I haven't seen people nearly put it on the radar as much as other Pokemon, is Annihilate. Annihilate has kind of undergone a massive transformation in the last few weeks, I would argue. Like, we saw Dawei get third.
Dortmund Regionals was crazy for Annihilate.
Dortmund was really good for Annihilate, but even before that, we kind of saw the seeds starting to be planted, where Dawei got third at Baltimore with a really, really interesting team. You just, again, support the Annihilate and just kind of make sure it gets rolling. And then we saw it do really well at Dortmund alongside all of the Sneasler stuff. Like, again, fighting types are just really good right now. But Annihilate is, I would say, it's carrying a lot of just nice traits about it. Number one is that it's a ghost type, and ghost type is arguably the best type in the format. Dragapult has it, Golden Go has it, this guy has it, and Sneasler sometimes has it. It's so good.
Or any Pokemon can have it with the help of Terastallization.
You
Sorry,
too
keep
could
going.
have it with Terastallization. But it's like, it's... Yeah, no, Annihilate just has like a lot of good natural traits. Defiant is an excellent ability, especially because we're starting to see Incineroar pop up more and more, and in not even so much a way that like it did before, but now we're starting to see the kind of throwback to aggro Incineroar, where it's built a little more aggressively, it's adamant nature, it does more damage, it's designed to knock out Pokemon actually, instead of just burn them and sit there and do nothing. But it's got a lot of really good things. Its speed tier is fantastic. It's right above a couple of Pokemon that it really would love to outrun, and it does. Rage Fist is an excellent move because it punishes a lot of like docile playing. Dire Claw is like a really good example where it's resistant to Dire Claw, and if you sure don't get statused by it, congrats, you basically took like 20 damage to get a free Rage Fist boost. It's got good stats in general. Like its kit is really useful. It's a good setup mon. It can beat Archaeudon. It did really really well at Dortmund and ended up winning that event. And like on a team that I feel like you normally wouldn't kind of see it on, it's like on this very hyper aggressive team, and it's very much shockingly like the slow mode, where it's fast, it's strong, but it's playing a different game. It's very much playing reactively, where it's bulking up, it's going for Rage Fist after taking damage, it's Drain Punching after it takes damage to heal back up health. Like Annihilate has to play reactively despite its fast like stats, like it's usually going speedy now. But it has a lot of pretty good, I would argue, things lining up for this event where we've seen Mousehole do well, we've seen Annihilate do well. Perhaps it's time for them to rejoin and combine
the gang
forces
back together.
Yeah, the gang's all here again, but I think Mouseape is pretty strong. Again, we could talk about Sneasler, Dragapult all day. But again, there's the coaching variants that are starting to pop up, and that was also a thing that kind of exploded at Dortmund because we saw Maddie do so well with it. And it really just like took off from there. We started to see coaching with Dragapult. We started to see it with Garchomp, obviously. I've seen Baxcalibur, I've seen Dragonite, I've seen Porygon 2 with like attack EVs, so that way it can go for Terra Blast fighting, or not fighting, but like Terra Blast physical. Off coaching, like Incineroar uses it now, like that's insane. Things that like I normally just never would expect to use coaching. They're using coaching all right. It kind of just it's a really good move. It's basically like Hal, but like if you just decided to trade your extra attack stat for like a defense on your partner. But we're seeing a lot of that run around. I wouldn't be shocked if like Sneasler was at least a top 3 Pokemon going into Kentucky. Just because it fits on so many comps, and again, fighting is an excellent type right now. Being able to just pummel all 3 of the steals is a big deal right now. Even though you can't technically hit Golden Go, but like once it Terras, you do force it out because it's 90% of the time steel. Like I think overall fighting types are just in a very very poised position to win this event. I wouldn't be shocked if you saw Sneasler or Annihilate win.
Hey. Brown, how are you feeling about this event going into, especially since you'll be providing expert commentary for it?
I'm pretty excited. I think for not everything is doom and gloom. Even though we have our gripes with some of the things, and it's still fair to talk about some of the negatives, but still we should give moments to the positives. And what I do think that this format does well is it does allow at least some versatility in whichever role you're filling on the team. So like with the lack of legendaries around, like you don't need a Mungus to be the redirector because it's the healthiest of the bunch. I think Jody tweeted that there was 8 different redirection Pokemon that have top cut a regional this year or something. I could be wrong with if it being 8, but it was a lot, so you just think like Amoonguss, Mousehole, Electabuzz, Magmar, Vivillon, Clefairy, Clefable is, I'm already at like 6 or 7 or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah. there is versatility within the roles, or maybe the top Pokemon or all the top Pokemon, Rillaboom, King Gambit, Golden Go, whatever, they're going to stay the same, but like there is versatility within the role like of what my intimidator of choice will be, or what my redirection of choice will be, or what if I want like a special attack or a special defensive wall or something like that. I do like that this format has it. Like my fighting type answer, it could be Sneasler, it could also be Flamigo, it could also be Annihilate or Hisuian Decidueye or whatever. Like I like that's what I'm excited for this weekend is like. Sure, the top threats will still be the top threats, and I don't anticipate the top 12 Pokemon changing too much throughout the weekend compared to on the graphic, at least compared to the prior events. But I'm excited to see if there are some of those things, like the way Sinistra popped up on Fevzi's team in like Archaludon Rain won in Baltimore, and then Fevzi and his crew changed that team up and made it a little more defensive and got rid of Basculegion for Sinistra with Life Dew and Hospitality and double beat up for Annihilate and Archaludon. Like I think I'm excited to see how people will use the same popular Pokemon but innovate within that popularity.
It's definitely, I do think that we have a good group of like team builders and like individuals out there that no matter where the format is, they'll always look at ways to try and like break it or to bring something that's like not the same old, which is definitely something that I do appreciate because it does make it to that when we're like, oh man, Terastalization's kind of boring. Oh man, we all hate Sneasler. That there is going to be people that are like, okay, well, I'm not going to bring Sneasler. Or like maybe I will, but I'm actually going to have something else really cool on my team. And like different ways to be kind of rounding it out. And since we are at a power level where that's acceptable to do, like you're not absolutely throwing your tournament run by doing so, there'll be good opportunity for that. So I am at least excited for that. So there's definitely some things that we are kind of expecting going into this event though. So of course, we do have our OHKO predictions for Louisville that Joe Brown set up. So I'll let you take the lead on this next part.
All right, so predictions are back. Usually we do these for all the NA regionals and the international championships and worlds and stuff like that. But it's been a bit. We kind of forgot for Baltimore. So also I don't even know if we forgot. It's just I was on a cruise.
We forgot for Baltimore, but like for Dortmund, like when you were gone, like yeah, we had predictions and it was awesome.
Oh, okay.
Joe was like right on the money with one of his predictions with the percentages of like I forget what Pokemon. I think it was Rillaboom percentage. Literally exactly on the money for how much it was. It was kind of crazy. So
all right, so we have 7 questions here. We're going to keep track of it, make sure to see who wins. James, of course, you're more than welcome to chime in. And the first question is James related, as we have a Garchomp here, a big Garchomp fan. Right. What will they see you have a Garchomp? Sierra also has her Garchomp somewhere around here. So we're all Garchomp fans here on the OHKO podcast. First question: predictions for the Louisville Regional Championships. Day 1 Garchomp usage. So if we go to Baltimore, if I scroll down, day 1 Garchomp was not there. He wasn't even on top 12 in day 2 of Baltimore. However, at Dortmund Regionals, Garchomp day 1 was 15% and day 2 was 18%. So what's the day 1 Garchomp usage in Kentucky?
I think if I had to guess, I think it's going to be on the lower end of the top 12. I think it's going to be 11th or 12th. It's a pretty fantastic Pokemon. It's got a lot running for it right now. We saw it in Baltimore do really well. Like it got second. It got I think like 2 different top 8s as well. It did pretty well for itself there. And then, at Dortmund, it also got another second place. It pretty much exploded, like, from there on out when we saw the coaching stuff. I think a lot has gone more in Garchomp's favor. We saw it when Joinville, under Gabriel Agati. It's really, really, really good right now because it is, in fact, the only ground type. You can look. There are no other ground types, actually. I keep going into the Showdown Builder, and Ursaluna just keeps saying it's a normal type. It's really weird. But it is the only ground type that can pretty much afford to do actual ground damage off the bat without having to like set itself on fire and then lower its defense or risk getting terrain nullified earthquake. But it's pretty good in that regard. It has Dragon Claw as well to kind of cover for
nice.
Dragonite. Yeah, Dragon Pull. It's good. It's good solid damage into a lot of Pokemon. I think now that we've seen coaching pop up and there are probably going to be other strategies involve Garchomp, it's pretty good on hyper offense, like Golden Ghost stuff. It's probably, I would say, probably 11.
Well, give us a percent. Give us a percent
Oh,
number.
a percentage. I was gonna say, like, what usually clocks like 11th or 12th? Like, it's like 20.
Probably like 13, 14% maybe is
I'm
12
gonna
is
go.
11th or 12th.
I'm gonna go with 19%. Roughly 1/5 of the tournament is gonna be running.
All right. What did he say the percentage was for Dortmund again?
So Dortmund day 1 was 15, day 2 was 18. But remember, this was before Joinville also Garchomp winning that event, and the conversation online has been, Agati and Adi and Paul Chua and everyone, saying this Garchomp team is legit. So is the hype going to exceed that 18%, or is it going to come back down to reality, Sierra?
I don't think it's necessarily like it'll come back down to reality. I think when you're looking at day 1 player base, there's a lot more variety of teams just with the amount of people cheerly. And I don't think everyone follows those 3 people, unfortunately. They should, but they probably don't.
Agati's back on Twitter, baby.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say 14%. I do think that it'll do well. I think it'll be higher than 14% on day 2. I think it'll have a really good conversion rate. I just don't think 1/5 of the field is quite fair. I'd put it a bit below.
I think so. Before you answered, I was going to say 15, and now I kind of feel bad. I feel like a jerk if I say 15 and you say 14. So I'll give us a little more. I'll give us a little more flexibility and go. What is 17 in the middle here? 17%, right? Because I'd feel bad if I kind of like jumped just because you went first. You didn't get the answer right. So I think 17%. That'll still be up from day 1 in Dortmund from 15 to 17, and I hope I'm a big fan of Garchomp, obviously. I think he's a fun Pokemon that like works on Tailwind team, works on all these defensive teams as well. Just strong, solid damage you can bring. Hardly ever really a dragon type because you just Terra Ground it every time. And I hope people realize, oh man, 90% of the team, 90% of the field has these 3 steel types on it. Like I could really use my Terra Ground Earthquake Pokemon right now in Garchomp. So hopefully 17% of people agree with me.
All fair numbers.
All right, now we're going to go on to our next OHKO prediction. This should be a fun conversation. Are there going to be more Magmar or Electabuzz in top 8? So not the whole asymmetrical cut and all 36 people that make it in and go down, blah, blah, blah. Just those 8 slots. Will there be more Magmar or Electabuzz?
I feel like this is an interesting one because I feel like in America, in North America, Electabuzz is more popular. In Europe, Magmar is way more popular. But Electabuzz has performed consistently higher, both times, like in both, Baltimore and in, what's his name? In, Dortmund. They got top 4 there. Magmar got top 8. I think we're finally going to see Magmar override that. It has a couple more things going for it, namely right now. They both get access to Vital Spirit, which is pretty valuable, but Magmar gets access to Overheat, which is really, really nice when you have all these steel types running around. And Electabuzz's biggest strength is that it's fast and it has Electro Web, which isn't particularly what you want to do. It's cute, but it's not exactly what you kind of seek out. It's nice damage onto things like Pelipper, but then you accidentally hit Archaeudon and it gets a stamina boost. And oh no, you hit King Gambit and suddenly your entire existence is in jeopardy. Magmar doesn't really care. It's a little less, I would say, aggressive as a redirector, but it's more slotted for the redirector role because it's clicking follow me. Will-O-Wisp is an excellent utility move, especially because Burn is kind of on the it's fringe right now. Not a lot of Pokemon can get it, especially because Sneasler is too busy running around doing the other 3 statuses to Pokemon. So Burn has kind of fallen off to the wayside a little bit because Instant stopped running it, but Magmar has room for it and it gets to run it. So that's very valuable into physical attackers that it's now being able to wall. Like I think the biggest issue is that Electabuzz kind of sits on the field and doesn't do it. Runs into Garchomp and it kind of just is like, I don't want to switch because that means my partners take the EQ. And now if I stay in, I die to EQ. So let's Terra to Dragon and see what happens. And shocker, you take 30% and you can't do anything back. Magmar's again a little different because it has the ability to burn. It's incentivized to stay on the field. It's saying, okay, well, my partners in the back are at risk of taking this earthquake, but if I can get a wisp off, if I can, put that in at least, then there's not really as big of a worry. I've done a part of my job as a support Pokemon, and then it's fine going down. It's a little easier to accomplish with once than I think.
Brown, do you want to go next for your answer so you're not always last?
Yes.
Or, I have
sure.
a really scientific method.
I say sorry, I keep going first.
No, it's fine. I'll go. Yeah, I'll go second time. I already know what my answers are. Like, so people don't think, oh, I'm just waiting for everyone else, to pick. I was gonna pick Magmar no matter what, and it's not even scientific. Although I do agree that I like burning things and I like overheat, which is really strong. Into all the steel types and stuff. But it's because last week, on last editions of the OHKO podcast, Sierra clowned me for saying that you can use static or flame body. Like, it's not awesome. It's not as great as Vital Spirit. But in certain situations, it's really nice to get a burn off of somebody going for an attack into your Magmar. And she clowned me like there was no tomorrow. Like, that's the craziest thing she's ever heard. You would never run Flame Body ever. And then someone in the YouTube comments was like, literally, there's a Magmar with Flame Body in Top Cut. And I don't know, what was it, Dortmund? I don't know, we have to pull up the YouTube comment. I forget whichever one it was at. I'm just going to blindly believe the YouTube comment that was on my side. That said, Magmar got Top Cut with Flame Body, so I got to support the boy here in Magmar.
Well, obviously now it's going to happen on the Kentucky stream, and it's going to get Dire Clawed, and it's going to activate Flame Body, and they get put to sleep from the Dire Claw. That'd be perfect.
Didn't win, though, is all I'm saying.
Neither of them have won yet,
That's all I'm saying. Also, like, you said for Top Cut, there was one with Flame Body?
That's what the YouTube comment said.
In Dortmund? I can look.
I don't know if it was Dortmund.
Because I looked through all the team sheets, and unless I opened up the same one twice by accident, I have them all down as Vital Spirit.
Oh, wow.
Hold on. Well, let me pull up the YouTube.
We need to look for science purposes now.
Did you? Well, you responded to them. Remember?
There's like 4 in a row.
Yeah, I didn't fact check them. My first thought wasn't to
either.
go
Why would I fact check? They're on my side.
But since we're talking about it now,
let's look.
I am seeing all of them as Vital Spirit.
Okay, hold on. How do we look? How do we control? How do we look? So maybe it wasn't. What's it called?
Maybe one on stream. But
is there one in Joinville? I don't know. I was just blindly following the YouTube comment that was in my favor. You know what I mean? I feel like that's fair.
6.
I mean, the blind, like, if there absolutely isn't a Flame Body
but we have
one,
a professional here. Can you back me up, James? That Flame Body is in theory viable.
I just said Vital Spirit. If for your redirector and in a Mungus format, I just think, especially if you're foregoing a safety goggles or a Lumberry or something, that Vital Spirit's just better. Or, like, what's your Amoonguss answer? Sleeping? Like, I don't know.
It's not wrong. What is it? I think I hit top 64, and all 9 Magmars I've seen are Vital Spirit so far.
I don't know. YouTube comments never lie. You know what I mean? So
I think they just did it for the first time. We have made history today, friends.
The first time. But still, James, answer the question. It still is viable.
It is viable. I don't
Thank
know
you.
how
Stop talking.
frequent.
Thank you.
He did quote unquote. You're gonna say okay.
Thank you.
Because you can run it and it does like some things, like it punishes Annihilate because it can't like Rage Fist into you. It a Mousehold can't.
Volcarona has Flame Body.
Yeah, Volcarona has Flame Body though, so it's kind of like if you wanted to run Flame Body, I feel like you would run it all.
Yeah, that was the discussion. I don't think Flame Body's a bad ability. I'm saying when you have a redirecting Magmar, like it's kind of just not great at that point.
What if her Shifu was around? What if we patch her Shifu into Reg?
And why do you want to have a Magmar as your redirector?
Because
that thing is getting
Terra
bodied.
Grass.
It doesn't matter.
It's Terra Grass, bro. And then he Surging Strikes 3 times into my Flame Body. That's almost guaranteed burn.
Then run a better Pokemon at that point.
Can't. I'm a Magmar fan. I'm stuck. I have to use it.
You can also just at that point, like, just run anything else. Like, I don't know. That just seems like kind of a waste. Here's the Terra Grass, so like I can still like follow me the Amoongus into the. I don't know. I just.
What are the odds? What are the odds that the teams on Victory Road, and when they put them together, they just wrote Vital Spirit because it is the most common thing? Is that a possibility?
Yeah, and it's also a possibility you were lied to in the YouTube comments.
I don't think so. It doesn't happen in the YouTube commens. Not our listeners.
All right,
not our
YouTube
listeners.
Comments,
Sierra.
YouTube comments. You gotta do it again. You gotta do it again. Which person at Dortmund had this flame body Magmar? We need to know because we looked and we cannot find it.
I also see Vital Spirit for everything, but I was just blindly going with someone who was on my side. You know, I feel like it's understandable.
Okay.
Anyway,
so
Sierra has to answer.
You're going Magmar based off YouTube comments. Legit. Yep. Still better than my reason. Actually, no, I think my reason's like pretty legit. So I'm gonna say Magmar. Specifically because when you look back at the results and who was running Magmar, the teams that are running like, because it's this Sneasler, it's a dragon majority of the time. This Dragapult, it's King Gambit, is a Rillaboom. A lot of these teams were the same. And it was just like whether the redirector was the Electabuzz or the Magmar. And more of them were the Magmar, but specifically two, I'm looking at their best, bringing the best redirector. And considering that there is going to be trends in what top players are using, there was other top players here using like back and forth, but like Don Garcia, for example, also Magmar. Like, there is something to be said for who is using what Pokemon and how that'll then ripple through the community. So I think both are viable. But I think if somebody's like, which one do I use? Oh my gosh, their best use this one. It must be good. That would also then take. Or if anyone that's just saw his team and just wants to take his team, well, then there you go, right? So I think it'll be like a 2-1. I don't think it's going to be a landslide, but
it's going to be hard for there to be a lot because it's only 8 slots. It's not like we're extending it to top 22 or.
But wasn't it Tub that started with Electabuzz in the first place? Because like we have Tub over here in NA, and if they're bringing Electabuzz instead,
hey.
Ooh.
I mean, I can see the shift.
We all said Magmar here, so which is fine.
Yeah,
we can all get no point. But if you want to be strategic here, Sierra.
No. I still think my original point is valid, but so that we can have some difference in their answers, and because someone from Tub is going to top cut, and Tub has shown in the past that they've gone the Electabuzz way, I will say Electabuzz for that reason.
Worse reason than my YouTube comment reason, you know? At least I had reason. You're just saying Electabuzz, you know?
Okay, sorry, Electabuzz because of you.
There you go.
Sorry you got lied to, and you're upset about it, and you have to take it out on everyone else.
First of all, I'm not even upset about it. You replied to them. Like, you didn't even do your own due diligence. Yeah. You just accepted that you got owned by a fake YouTube comment. Like,
I trusted. But I didn't then like go and make a video essay on
because I trust our community. That's the difference.
I didn't go source.
I trust the OHKO truthers. Okay.
All right. So
I'll fall on the sword gladly.
You can say whatever you want to Joe Brown, and he will take you at face
value.
value.
I'll fall on the OHKO sword.
Joe Brown,
gladly
officially
for our
the easiest
audience.
person to scam on the internet ever.
Bro, you're not wrong.
You're just like, help! I need gas money because can you cash at me? And then Joe Brown's like, certainly. How much do you need? You will get me back tomorrow for sure.
Yeah, right. It's like, right. Did you hear the Prince of Blah is an OHKO listener and he just needs $1,000? Okay. Anyway.
I'll definitely pay you back.
All right. Next prediction. What will be the highest placing Archaludon team? So in Baltimore, that was Nicholas winning the event with Archaludon. Dortmund, top 8, technically. Fevzi had Archaludon, and Joinville, looking for it, is also top 8. So I don't know who wants to go first. Highest placing Archaludon team.
I'll say 3rd place. You should give like an actual number so we're not making this unfair. I'm going to say 3rd place. It won't be in the grand finals.
But isn't that the same thing if they both lose in top 4, right? So that's why don't be too, if you want to say top 4, I think that's.
I'll say top 4.
Okay.
I think it's probably going to land somewhere in top 8. I think Archaludon is good, but it's nowhere near as good as its 2 steel brothers, where it's like Go gets to ignore half the game. King Gambit gets rewarded for just getting a few turns right, and then cleans the entire board. It's like the middleman, where it's like Archaeodon gets to ignore some of it because it has stamina, and it gets to eventually clean the entire board if you get Electro Shot off enough times. But it kind of I would say it's a little more chunky than the other two. It doesn't have to nearly worry as much about weaknesses because Steel Dragon is just kind of a better typing than the other two. But it's definitely got to work a little harder, and it's got to find an opening. It's got to rely more on its Terra to carry mind games.
What do you think? What do you think, Sierra?
I already answered. I said top 4.
Oh, I forgot. I thought
Oops.
I was so used to James starting that I was like, okay, James is starting, and then I was like, okay, then we see.
I ruined it.
I forgot the process. He says that for me. I think you guys are crazy. I think this mine's cracked. I'm going finals. It gives me 2 slots. It gives me either second or first place if it gets there. It's I think Archaeodon, even if it's only on 20% of the teams, it seems like it's, compared to the other steals. Like, I think a lot of the good teams are also using Archaeodon, and I think people are going to innovate even more on that Archaeodon Pelipper. Like the other 4, it's Archaeodon Pelipper, and the other 4 you can figure out the other slots. So I think in my thoughts, it'll be at least in the finals. There will be a tall Electroshock bridge on one of the 2 final teams. That's my guess.
I hope not.
I would like to not fight that many Archaeodon, but if I have to, then.
Sorry, can you just, James? I just need you to repeat how you're saying that Pokemon name again, like slowly, please.
I thought the whole time.
Archaeodon.
Where's like the Y coming from? It's Archaeodon.
Wait. No, it's Archaeodon. I don't know where the Y, like what Y you're thinking.
You're saying Udon. I'm saying you're putting a Y in. No, the U's not by itself. The U is
it's like the U is like the extension of like the L.
No,
Archaeodon.
Archaeodon.
No, it's not, because it was not Duralyudon. Duralyudon. Archaeodon.
But Duralyudon sounds cooler.
No, it's like aluminium over here, like that. I'm listening. It's like a British person talking.
I think Aluminidon. I don't know.
I'd have to go back. I think Brady was also pronouncing it Archal.
I was gonna say you abbreviate
Udon.
You abbreviate it to Arch anyway, so like you avoid that.
No, what's worse is the content creators that say Arcaludon, like they're saying they're saying like a Star Wars villain's name or something. That remains
one that gets
Darth Arcaludon.
Exactly.
You haven't heard about the Sith Lord from that one comic book that was like printed in 1988, dude?
Fake fan.
Oh my god. The one that gets me is because everyone said Goldango, but then obviously
people still say it, bro.
It's Golden Go, and like especially as a caster, we got to say the names right. So that one's just like now I hear it, and I hear someone say Goldango, and I'm like, no.
It gets me so tilted. People still say Goldango.
Because that one's fair because like it's
not fair. He's golden.
No, but the way you shorten it to like a nickname is you say the Dango, like it's Dango
or Goldie.
That Goldie?
Goldie is crazy.
No,
that is not.
I've heard Gold.
That is like, not crazy. That is absolutely a nickname that people.
Do you abbreviate it to Gold or you say the Dango? Like, because no one says Dango by itself. You say, oh yeah, you doubled the Dango. Like,
I am not alone. Goldie is a nickname for Golden Go.
I've never heard that.
But like people have like actually shorthand called it.
Yeah, not on broadcast.
But
in text when you're typing.
Like
Joe, you can change this. You are commentating Knoxville. You can
have the power. I have the power to say Goldie sweeps through this.
Yeah.
Goldie locks this game up. Oh my god, we're so good.
God.
We're so good, Sierra. Oh my god. All right, let's get back to the predictions here. Enough of this nonsense. All right, back to more nonsense. Which this is personally my favorite prediction. I am the most excited for, and I'm gonna pop off if I get correct because there's no way we're gonna know this. Not how many Dire Claw status conditions will be on screen.
Oh god.
What will be the first dire claw status condition on stream. So we're not keeping track of, 9 rounds of Swiss and all day 2 and all that stuff. Just the first one, paralysis, sleep, or poison.
Sleep,
like a
and it's
dice in
going
my
to
room.
win that person the game.
Yes,
Easy,
I
on the spot.
actually 100% agree. Actually, no. Here's what I'll say. I'll be devil's advocate. It's gonna be a paralysis, but that paralysis will win someone the game.
Well, yeah.
I think that's equally as bad as you get Dire Claw para in the full pair. Like that's worse odds.
As we literally got to see Dortmund day 1.
Yeah.
Oh my god! Yeah, I think it will happen. I think it's gonna. Honestly, I've been paralyzed more times than I've been slept by Dire Claw, and every time the para activates, it's just It just something in the game's code really likes sticking it to you at that point. It's like, all right, we've gone this far, just full para.
I got slept on stream before recording, and I wanted to chuck my controller. Like it absolutely cost me the game too.
That happened to me in the global challenge. I played a guy. He was my highest rated opponent. He played the standard Sneasler team, and I was like, okay, this is pretty fine. I get the call right. He like protects his Primarina. I double into his Sneasler with like Clefable and my Sneasler. He Dire Claws into my Sneasler on Terra Poison, sleeps it instantly. I'm like, okay. It's fine.
You're saying you never have to worry about Sneasler, Dire Claws ever again if you just click Hypnosis Yanma.
And
There you
then
go.
it gets even better. It's a couple turns later. I pull the game back. He tears Gambit to Dark in front of my Sneasler. I'm like, okay, cool. I just close combat it and it's knocked out. Dire Claws again, gets sleep instantly. I'm just like, okay, man, sure.
It should be like that.
It's fun. It's the game we
And
played. A good game.
That was the Terra Dark Sneasler that I faced. That I expanding forced into it, and then he goes Terra Dark, and so then Dire Claw sleep, and because I already whiffed my expanding force, then I had to stay asleep the next turn. Yeah, it was not a good time. Yeah, but my thoughts here, mathematically, I know there was that tweet that went around. Isn't it most likely that poison happens, right? Because of poison touch, and then also poison potentially rolling off the Dire Claw.
I want to say it's like 50% that you get.
So I'm going with the math here, and I'm going to say poison. So let me raise that. So I said poison. Sierra, you said sleep, right? That's going to win them the game.
Oh, perfect. Then we got all three.
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing. The game doesn't care about math because sometimes it will
they're all 50-50, Joe Brown.
It will just do whatever it wants. I would say the game, if anything, is proven it hates math because I've seen some astronomically low odds for me to lose games, and I just go around the venue. I'm like, you'll never guess what happened to me, man. Like
the game, especially for a broadcast match, wants to pull the most crazy stuff out there, and it's not going to be a poison. Cause like a lot of the times, like unless it's like you brought the Pokemon down low and
so, like,
the Pokemon wasn't going to act anyways that turn, or like its move was not going to be anything major, and then you get poison. Like I feel like there's a lot of the times where the poison isn't nearly as substantial as like the paralysis, which changes the speed order, and it could just be a full para, or the sleep where it's a mandatory turn of sleep. So like on like the BS meter, I feel like poison is at the bottom, which means it's not going to be the one we see most often, let alone first. Like because that's no fun, right?
I think that's fair.
We want maximum content. We need the drama. Get those views.
I actually do like the poison every time I get it. Every time I get like a poison touch on Sneasler, I'm like, it's nice. I'll take it. Especially like when you get something like Porygon 2.
Feel as bad. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm like, you know what? That's a good middle ground. Take it or leave it. Like they're definitely like bothered, but not nearly to the point that I really feel like oh, now I'm a scumbag for clicking this move. It's just enough to be like, oh yeah, I got lucky and now I CC your Porygon 2. Yeah, exactly. Like I earned that.
Poison.
All right, so let's move on here. So we're getting pretty late as of recording, so let's move on. We have 3 more prediction questions. The next one is a Pokemon that I have clowned on quite a bit in this regulation, and that is Primarina as our quote-unquote premier fairy type of the format, end quote. Day 2 Primarina usage. For context, let me scroll down.
It's like
Baltimore. Day 2 in Baltimore was 24%, and in Dortmund it was very high. It was 4th overall at 34%. So will it stay? It definitely trended up almost 10% from Baltimore to Dortmund. Will it stay that high, or will it come back down to reality?
Nope. Pokemon sucks I think it'll be on the graphic because like we have no water types, we have no fairy types, we have no haze users. Like we're starved out here. I say like 20%. I want to say 19, but I'll round up to 20. I think 20% for day 2. Just because at the end you kind of need it, like for some of these teams, but like it's in a pretty slow speed tier. The amount of times where I'm like, I'm in a really good position if I can just haze this turn, and I get KO'd before I even haze. It's like, well, what's the point? What's the point of this? So
yeah. I actually like Primarina quite a lot. I was going around at the beginning of the format, and I think I've said it still now. Like I'm a pretty firm Prim believer. Anytime this Pokemon decides to show its face in a format that's pretty low BST, it suddenly reminds everyone that this Pokemon's stat total is not alright. It's got like 126 special attack, and its Finesse is not that far behind. It has really incredible stats. It just so happened to premiere in the same game as the other best water fairy type in the entire series. Oops. But it really is something else, I think. I would say we saw it in Gen 8. It was a monster with Dynamax when it had access to it. It was arguably the best Pokemon in the game for a format and a half there. Definitely not the same here, but it is really, really good in my opinion. I think it has a really useful kit of, I would say, Hyper Voice is amazing on it. Moonblast is great. Haze is situational. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I actually like Prim's offensive kit a lot more. It gets a lot of unique moves. Like I think Choice Specs is an interesting kit that no one's really looked into yet. Just because Spread Dazzling Gleam is super like big fairy damage on a lot of Pokemon. And like it gets a lot of funny, unique force moves. But I think overall Prim is, I would say it's definitely more popular in Europe than I think in North America, but I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it. I would say it's definitely going to be on a decrease in usage from Dortmund. But I think it's going to be higher than Baltimore. I think it's already proven its weight, or like proven its worth on a lot of teams where it just kind of does a lot of good things. It's not necessarily super fantastic at its job. It's just good at doing a lot of things. It's good at eating hits. It's good at dishing out damage. And I think, especially for fairy types, it's really good at that. Like I think even Fluttermane to some degree was that, like, had that job when you know say people could run bulky on it, and so its job was to literally eat hits that the opponent was not expecting it to, and then dish out equally as powerful damage, and then like it comes out on top because it's just stronger. Like fairies have historically always been really good at doing that. Even like OHKO, which is a relatively rare one, like Lele. I mean, Finny's always been the queen of doing that. It's just their jobs are to eat hits, hit back harder.
yeah, but Rillaboom. Rillaboom
Sorry,
Woodhammer.
what was your number? I wrote Sierra's down at 20%. What's your day 2 number, percentage wise?
Day 2 number, I would say 25%.
25. All right.
Might be a little high, but
no. Well, I mean, it was 34% in Europe, right? So it's not. Yeah, if you think it'll come down from those heights, it's still a good number. I think for me, I have to go with my brain and not my heart, because I would love if it was at 5%, but analytically it's just not going to happen. So I have to understand people will be using this Pokemon in droves, and I'll say it won't be a third of day 2 players, because I'm going to say 32% instead, not 33% or 34%. I think it'll still be very high, similar to how Dortmund went, but we'll see what happens. All right. This is a fun spooky question, since this is our Halloween for the regional. How many teams in top 8 will have a ghost type on them? So not doubling up, like if one team has 2 ghosts, it doesn't count for more. Just how many of the top 8 teams, 0 to 8, will have a ghost type on them?
Can I just say what everyone's definitely thinking?
Yeah, it's your choice. Go ahead.
It's all.
And I'm not talking Terra, by the way. I'm not saying Terra ghosts.
No, okay, but I was gonna say I think it's all of them. I genuinely think that if you're not running, I would say like everyone's talking about the big 3 steel types. I would argue there's a big 3 ghost types. There's a big 3 dragon types if you look hard enough. It's just like there are so many. Like I already argued that ghost is the best type in the form, whether it's Terra or its base form. But it really is, I would say, I've always held like a very high opinion of Ghost as a typing. I think it's always been like a top 5, I would say, at least since I started. It's been a top 5 offensive typing in the game. being able to ignore a lot of things, and Ghost has just risen the ranks of becoming a much more offensive type across the years. It's not nearly as, I would say, it's still frail, but you can manage that frailty in a lot more ways that are a lot more conventional for teams nowadays than you just was like, all right, well, hope to God you eat the hit with Mega Game. That's it. It's like Ghost has gotten nothing but buffs over the last couple of generations. So I definitely think, I would say, I want to, let me try and find, I would say, I don't know Dortmund stats, but like, a fair amount of Ghosts were in that top cut. Same with Baltimore.
Yeah.
I can't ensure that like everything would be here, but I feel like it's pretty safe to say like 6 or 7 out of 8 teams would definitely have a Ghost type.
You got to pick a number, James. You're so bad at the predictions in terms of making a
He
decision.
did say 8 at the
Look,
beginning.
I just play the game. I don't.
I heard 8. I heard 6 to 7.
This is why I'm in front of the desk, not behind.
You gotta lock in. This is like a game show.
He's locking in
host.
8.
You gotta
We're
lock
giving
in
him
your
8.
final answer. You're locking it in at 8. All right.
I'm locking
Locked.
Aggressive.
Done.
I love it.
Closed. Deal or no deal. That's the thing. Absolutely, just like you cannot
Closed.
change your answer.
Doesn't the
Super
case
valid,
open
though.
though? Like, oh no, wait, that's
No, but it's closed.
No, but
like,
then you
the
could trade
thing
it.
over the
You're too
buzzer,
young
the
for
thing
deal
over
or
the
no
buzzer.
deal,
okay.
James.
Yeah.
It was a whole thing.
If you like
There
that.
was the whole banker behind the screen and whatnot. You know.
All right, we're gonna get so off topic if we start on another show. I am exhausted. So
All right, you want me to go first or you, Sierra?
next week? No, because you'll steal my answer. I'm gonna say
Okay,
7. Because realistically, I actually think 8's a really good answer. At first, I was just like,
Let me do some math here.
oh, I was like, what ghost types are there? Dragapult? And then I was like, oh yeah, Annihilate. Oh yeah, Basculation. Oh yeah, Annihilate. And it was just like, the list kept going on of like really top strong ghost types. It was like, because at first, like when James said 8, I was just like, oh, okay. And then I looked at him like, actually, yeah, that's probably the best answer. So I'll take the second best, which is 7.
Wow, can't believe you stole my answer like that. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, you said, you know, I was gonna take 7 from you. I'm looking. It was 6 in Baltimore. Let me just run through here.
Repeat an answer if you want.
No, yeah, for sure. Definitely Dragapult. There we go. And there is okay. So 7 in Dortmund. The only team that didn't have it was Davide, Rillaboom, Salamence, Primarina, Sneasler, King Gambit, Magmar.
Yeah.
And then I don't know. Joinville also the top. We already know that the top 3 teams don't have a ghost type on it until Golden Go in 4th place. So I guess I'll be strategic then and I'll say 6 because technically we haven't seen 8 yet. So James is the one being optimistic here, saying that all 8 teams are going to have a ghost type. Yeah, I'm being a little more conservative, saying that there's going to be 2 non-spooky players in top 8.
2 non-spooky players?
2 non-spooky players. At the Spooky
2 whole
Regional.
non-spooky players?
Yes. It's more likely than you think. All right. On to the most important question of the predictions, which we have literally never gotten correct in over a year of predictions. But if one of us ever does get the correct prediction, we're going to pop off so hard. Who is going to win the Louisville Regional Championships? And we're not allowed to say James, and neither is James.
All right. Can I go first?
Sure.
I like sometimes hesitate on my answer, but I thought of this beforehand. I want to lock it in. Justin Tang.
Ooh, okay.
I don't know. I was just like, I was motivated by like a comment he had made. Like, I think that Nick had made about him and Tang driving down together. And then it reminded me of last time that Tang won a regional, which he drove with
Nick.
With him driving with Nick. And it was just like flashback. And it just like, I don't know. We've been talking like a couple times during the episode about like different like great team building like things that the 2 Tangs have like done, Shilling Tang and Justin Tang. So I just was like, you know what, like there's, I don't know, just like call it a feeling, like just something. I was just like, you know what, I'm just gonna say Justin. So yeah, there's my answer.
Okay, now we'll leave the pro for last because his is the most important prediction here. So
I'm quite flattered you would think that highly of my opinion.
So
it's definitely not going to be good. Like
I don't know if Nick Navarre is going or not. I hope he is because he's kind of on a tear right now. You know, crushing it in the GC and everything. So my answer is going to be Nick Navarre. That would be what his is that his 3rd or his 4th regional win if he wins it.
His 3rd regional.
I think yeah. So that's my claim. Nick Navarre wins his 3rd regional championship in Louisville.
I was to say I couldn't think of anyone at first, but I would say Nails is a really good one. He is absolutely just destroying this format right now, and he's really really good at the game overall. I would definitely bet safe money on that, but unfortunately I can't bet on that because that was already taken. So I'm gonna be the wild card, and I'm gonna say someone new wins this tournament. I think it's gonna be someone we haven't seen before.
But you have to put a name down. You have to
Well,
give us an
I feel-
actual name.
All right, let me go on
Wait,
random
we can
name
do-
generator.
Okay,
No.
please don't. Please don't. You're gonna end up with Childish Gambino
No,
somehow.
I think like a name we haven't seen on broadcast is like, or like a name we don't know. Is
Nah,
fair.
that's lame. That's
let me-
lame, James. I'm not gonna lie. That's a lame answer.
I think I'll have to go with my roommate. Then actually, no. I'm sorry, Joe, but I had to. Let me course correct here because I realized this, and I feel like it's time. It's time we acknowledge that this happens. I feel like Luca Trade needs to win a regional. I feel like, you know, if I can't say myself, and if I say Joe, then I'm gonna get on a phone call with him and be like, "Oh yeah, you got your team," and he's gonna be like, "Oh yeah, that team definitely does not work," and then we're gonna be sitting in our hotel room Friday night trying to figure it out. Luca kind of probably doesn't feel too confident about this tournament. I've talked to him a little bit about it, but I feel like it's just about time it happened. If you know what I mean. I feel like we're nearing the threshold of that happening. It's like kind of a gut call. Not much else I could say to it. I just think it's going to happen.
Well,
Hey,
King Gambit is like
sometimes it is.
38% usage, so
Yeah.
it might be Lucas.
Also that.
So how confident is everybody feeling? Do they think they took some risks? Did you play it safe? Or how do you think your predictions are going to end up?
Well, I think I'm winning them.
Well, of
I
course,
think I'm
the
winning
Eric
them.
thinks he's winning.
So. I had some good predictions. That's all I can say. So
I'm
I
just
don't
saying,
know.
if someone new wins the regional and you guys
We'll
deny
give it to
me
you.
of my chance to get it right, let me say,
We'll-
I think it's realistic. But I would say, if I have to give an answer, I definitely would say.
Good.
Okay.
Any final thoughts about Louisville ahead of the event from either of you two? Before we wrap up this episode,
I got to think of some city fun facts. I have to hit the Google machine and look up some fun facts to espouse on the air. And think of some like good puns. If anyone has any good Louisville or Kentucky puns or jokes, horse racing, whatever. Can't talk about drinking.
I got a pun for you. Someone like does something that's like boring or bad. You're like, I thought this was Louisville, not Booeyville. Ooh, terrible.
That's the worst.
Good God.
I swear, if we were on broadcast, I would stand up. I would have removed my headset and walked out. But, oh, wait, hold on. Wait, but what about, because it's the Halloween theme?
Yeah,
What if
no,
we
it's
call
perfect.
it
No,
Booeyville?
it's like a double play on word. It's perfect.
I'm literally a genius.
You first of all, you're accidentally a genius because you accidentally got
Still
to
a
the good version of
Dude,
Booeyville.
It doesn't that even attest more so to my geniusness? Is
That's a
that
great
I didn't
point.
even
Accidental
have to try.
geniusness.
It's like if a toddler was all of a sudden doing advanced calculus and it was by accident. Like no, like somewhere in there is a genius. It's just you didn't know.
You said,
I
Booeyville,
like this
advanced
Goodwill
calculus.
Hunting idea where it's just like someday this baby just wakes up and starts doing calculus subconsciously. Like I guess he saw enough.
Oh
Yeah.
goodness! All right. Well, I think you know what I think Sierra won the predictions. Now, in retrospect, now that we know that we're dealing with an accidental genius here, I think we're kind of cooked, James.
What is it? My one hope for Louisville is that someone, because I said this is the Halloween event, so like I guess it's the closest to get to Halloween, unless you want to have like the Thanksgiving regional instead of like a pumpkin carving contest. We have like a gourd carving contest instead. But like I think it would be really funny. And Jesse, if you're watching this, I really hope you do it now. Someone needs to like go around with like a trick or treat bucket and just be like, yeah, you can only take one each. Like when you sit down for the round.
Oh, do you like
That would
sit
be fun.
down? I love
Yeah.
that actually.
Like it's like a doorstep. Like
Oh my gosh. That would be really good. Somebody's gotta message Jesse at the end of this. Someone's gotta let him know.
on it.
Or Marcus, like Strider.
Oh, that'd be
Marcus Dion
perfect,
would
yeah.
also do that, considering he had the roses in the past.
Yeah.
Bachelor Bib
Perfect.
is so good.
Oh yeah, well, if that is it from us, then I think it's time to be wrapping this one up. James, thank you so much for coming on to the episode, giving your
Nope.
perspective.
No problem. Thank you for having me
Wait.
again.
Hold on, James.
Awesome.
We have a really quick question of the week here. Super easy because
I
there's no way we're gonna be able to get it right because
All right.
there's 1,000 Pokemon. So it's from Split Second, who is one of our OHKO listeners, going to be at the Louisville Regionals. He showed off those coasters in the chat if you saw those, right? So
Yes.
the funny part is he said there's no way this is going to get chosen for question of the week. So in your face, this is the question of the week from Split Second. What are your predictions for the mystery Pokemon that will appear on the coaster sets I prepare for Joe and Sierra for this weekend? So for those who aren't in the Discord, which by the way, make sure you join our Discord link in the description down below. He has these coasters to give out for OHKO fans that have OHKO podcast on. It's really cool.
Very
But apparently
cool.
he has a mystery Pokemon on the other side. So that's our question of the week. What do we think it is? Because I think Slitherwing's too obvious because I'm not a
I
Slitherwing
agree.
enjoyer.
I
Well, he said like 3 each.
Okay, so there are 3 different Pokemon,
But it's only
or
mystery
there are 3
Pokemon.
different?
There's no S.
Mon. Okay.
The question says mystery Pokemon.
I
Not-
was gonna say Mew and Slitherwing feel too obvious. They feel too Sierra aligned instead of like in the middle. It needs to be a Pokemon that Joe and Sierra both I would imagine look fondly upon. I feel like Torkoal is too Joe coded.
I do
But
as well.
No, it's-
Jumpla.
Second says there is a total of 6, 3 for each.
Oh,
Pokemon, just like Pokemon names, you don't say Pokemons. It is always going to be posted as a singular, even when it is a plural.
okay.
Oh my bad. I thought
So
I
it's-
read it
so
as
it's 3.
because there would have. Yeah, okay.
It's 3 each.
So wait, does that
So
mean
6.
Does that mean 6? That
It's a
means
team
3
of
for
6.
you, 3 for me.
Okay.
3
so,
for me, 3 for you.
Oh,
Okay.
what? It's Joe Brown, not Ugarte.
Yeah.
Oh wait,
So-
I might be a little.
All right, James. You're
My bad.
It's late,
you're out
it's
of the
late.
question of the week. So obviously, 1-1 Sierra, it's got to be Armarouge and Slitherwing, right? Those have to be our number ones, Armarouge and Slitherwing.
Yeah.
So we have to predict here what the other Pokemon are.
So,
Surely one is Garchomp.
I think one for me's got to be Garchomp, right? I mean, that's my
And-
Twitch
ooh,
emotes.
Tyranitar, considering the meme.
Oh, the T-Tar meme is so good. It might
but
be
then
T-Tar,
also
though.
Keldeo.
Could be Keldeo. Okay, I'm gonna lock in Armarouge, Keldeo, T-Tar, just because the T. I am kind of synonymous with that T-Tar meme at this point, so I think it
Yeah.
works.
True.
What are the Sierra specific coasters?
See, where this is hard is I've been doing content for a long time, and through that there has been different Pokemon that have been like known to be associated with me, but I stopped doing full-time content long before OHKO started, so majority of the people in the Discord would not know them, but then I don't know what Pokemon people associate with me, so I think Slitherwing at this point is given.
Yeah.
But like, fun fact, Ho-Oh was the first Pokemon associated with me. Ho-Oh. But nobody in the Discord would know that.
More
Then
than
there
the
was
Toronto
Mew.
Maple Muse?
It was before the Maple Muse. And then
Oh.
when the Maple Muse happened, that's when Mew started becoming more known with my channel, which I'm going to say I think is still well known enough that
I
I
would
can
say
still
so.
see
I would
it.
say so, yeah.
So I'd say Slitherwing, Mew, but like the channel, like I would say if this was like my Twitch community, it 1,000, 100 million%, it would be a Mr. Mime. I hate Mr. Mime. Despise it. People have bought me posters, plushies, figurines, and given them to me at events because I hate him so
Why?
I
What
have
did he do
3
wrong?
different Mr. Mime. I just hate him. I hate him.
Why though?
Sarah.
What did he do?
He
He's
deserved it, to be honest
he's-
with you.
he's-
But I cracked the code. Hold on. You're also the Piplup person, too.
Oh my god!
With
it's
all the
so,
plushies.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Piplup. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that's-
I would assume. Yeah, but if this was like to my community, it 1,000% would have been Mr. Mime. 1,000%. Oh, it's terrible. But yeah, no, Slitherwing, Piplup would be like the next on the list, and then Mew would be like the final one, I think.
I'm excited to see the coasters, and he split second flips it over. It's like Arbeliva or something.
I just did random Pokemon generator. Like
Maractus.
It's Maractus. Like, thanks, appreciate the support.
It's Shieldon, my favorite.
It reminds me of like that vine. It's like a Maractus, and it's like it's like that, but Maractus.
Yeah. Sorry, everybody. We have a channel in the Discord. If you are going to Louisville for event meetups, have a conversation. Try to run into Split Second. He has those to give out to the fans. Thank you so much for making those as well. But luckily, we got a quick question of the weekend at the end.
I got a little one, so good catch on that. But now for realsies, we're going to be wrapping up this episode. Thanks again, James, and anyone who is still listening at this point. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to join the Discord, follow on Twitter, and whatever platform you're listening to for the podcast. If you're traveling to Louisville, best of luck, safe travels. If you are affected by the hurricanes in Florida, of course, we're sending all our energy and love to you. Hope that you and your family and loved ones are safe. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening to this episode of OHKO. We'll see you all next week. Peace.